Welcome to Story Before Glory. My name is Ronke Adebajo. My guest today is Sarah Alonge. Every young lady is always excited about getting married, but Sarah had a surprise coming. Join us on the show. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I really, really love your look and your face.
Thank you.
Pretty.
Thank you.
Sarah, there was something you said to me when we were having our discussion.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a quote that sort of like stuck in my head. And I think it will be the very first place I want to start. You said to me, you never place your passion over someone more than your purpose.
Yeah.
Why that quote? Why that? That obviously comes from a deep place, isn't it? A place of experience.
Yeah. I think it took a very long time for me to get to the place where I could identify that in my situation, I placed my passion and my feelings for someone above my purpose for God. And it's really, really important for us as people to live out our purpose.
Yes.
So the people that you have in your community, the people you have around you, the person that you marry by God's grace should be in line with God's purpose for you. Because if not, then you find yourself falling outside of what God has called you to do. And you know, we underestimate the importance of the right people around us.
Very, very true. Very important. I noticed I said purpose, but you made it clear that it's God's purpose.
God's purpose, yeah.
And again, looking at purpose, a lot of us kind of like drift in and out, isn't it? Because there's a difference if you're talking about your purpose and God's purpose.
Yeah.
Because at times we have a mindset of what we want to do. And I'm going to flip that a bit and begin to just say God's will, if that makes sense, you know. And you mentioned something which we talked a bit more about, especially for women and even for men. There's the woman in you that is a daughter, and then there's the woman in you that is a wife. There's a woman in you that is someone's sister.
Yeah.
But there's the woman in you that has come to fulfill God's purpose.
Absolutely.
And I think at times we don't necessarily discover that. We're always looking for affirmation in terms of someone's wife.
Yes.
Or someone's
mother,
or
someone's daughter, or the best friend.
Yes. And I feel, and that came across quite strongly from the conversation I had with you, that which leads to what we've just quoted, that it's very important that you know who you are.
Absolutely.
You know what your purpose is, because from that you can be fully what God has wanted you to be in your relationship. In your marriage, and you know, as a mother, even, because if you don't know your purpose, how can you really be you know, the mother that God wants you to be? Yeah,
it's weird because with each day I realize that your purpose evolves, you grow, and as you grow and as you get closer to God, like everything in my life is to do with God. Thank God for that. It took a while to get there.
We're on this show. We're here to glorify God, so please feel free.
Honestly, it took a while to get to that point, but when I did, I realized that the closer I got to God, the more I was able to see different elements of my purpose.
Because we know in parts, isn't it?
Exactly.
It keeps unfolding.
Exactly. It's not you wake up one morning and God says, okay, this is what you're going to do. You know, each day you learn more. You're around new situations. You see, you know, different things that God wants to show you. And unfortunately, you know, in the situation that I was in, I was growing, he was growing, but we weren't growing together.
Yes.
And that's where the issue was.
We don't want to say that situation yet. We'll come back to that very soon, because that's the juicy part of our story. Let's go back to what was growing up like for you as a child, at home. Are you a first child? Because we had the first...
So I'm the last born.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Okay. I'm the last. Gets a bit technical. Yeah, I'm the last born. I'm the only girl for my mum. And I have two older brothers, which some people think, you know, I'm spoiled, but I just think I'm favoured. Yeah.
Thank you.
They think I'm spoiled. Yeah,
I'm the last also, so I can so relate to that.
You understand? I just,
I'm a daddy's girl all the way.
I'm such a daddy's girl, 100%. Okay. So I grew up in, you know, my family are really close. I'm very close to my brothers. My dad actually lives abroad. My mum lives here. So in some respects, it wasn't the most ideal setting, but there was a lot of love in my home.
Irrespective of that distance.
Irrespective of that distance.
You do have some people that, because of that, they said,
exactly.
there's something missing. Like
exactly. I mean, yes, there was. But at the same time, I think my parents both tried really hard to make sure that even if things were a bit funny outside with us children, that we would feel that love. Okay. So that was really important. Both my parents are believers. My mum's a deacon at the church.
Okay, so you've grown up in
grew up
church,
in church,
going to church.
Yeah.
I saw your
grew up in church. Yeah.
Okay, so let's explore that year. What does that year mean?
So I grew up in church. When you get to about 12, they start saying, okay, you must join the choir. Whether you can sing or not, you're joining that choir. Thankfully, I could sing, so it was okay. So I joined the choir. Then I got to the age of 16. I got a job. And, at first, my mum and dad were like, you must tell them you're not going to work on Sunday. Okay. So the first year, I got away with that.
Okay.
Second year, I was like, they called me for Sunday shifts. Really, Sunday was a time and a half. So I was getting paid more money.
Which tend,
at the age of 17 and you're like, preparing to go to uni was really important to me. And also I just became quite disengaged from my parents' church. I felt they didn't necessarily understand what was going on in a young person's mind. So
we get a lot of that happening now, where people disengage from.
So I stopped going to church. My parents were okay with it. My granddad at the time, may he saw rest in peace, was like, you must go to evening service. Okay. So I would go to evening service. Then he stopped checking up on me, so I stopped going. And then that was basically it.
But then when you got into uni, you happened to start going to another church, and that was where you started your own personal relationship with God, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the second term of university was where I had the encounter with God, I like to call it. So the first term was, typical, I'm Nigerian, so there was no such thing as, you turn 18, you can go clubbing. In which household? It's not mine. So as soon as I got to uni, I could go clubbing whenever I wanted to. I could drink, The freedom was there that I didn't have at home. But there was always something missing. And I didn't know what that thing was until it was February. And we were supposed to go to an event, around Valentine's Day on the next campus. Mostly, I looked cute because there's going to be boys there, so,
Obviously.
And then what happened? It was snowing and it was really bad. And so we couldn't get a taxi to the next campus. And there was no buses, and I certainly wasn't going to walk. So it was like, okay, what's the motive? And there was a young lady from my church at the time who lived across the way from me, and she'd been inviting me. So we said, you know what? Since we're all dressed up, let's just go. So we went to the church event. It was in a lecture theatre. And I remember getting in there, and it was full to capacity. Like, people were sitting on stairs. And in my mind, I'm thinking, is this church? And we get there, and there was like performing arts. There was all of these amazing things. And then there was the word, and something happened in the word where I felt like every single thing was like a bullet, like, that's the Sarah, that's the Sarah, that's the Sarah.
It's the conviction.
It's the conviction, exactly.
It's hidden.
Exactly. Yeah. And I tried to ignore it. They called for an altar call. I didn't go down because, I was with my friends. And then by the end of the service, I went to my friend and I said, okay, when is the next service? She said, it's next week, Wednesday. But we have 6 a.m. prayer on Friday morning. At 5:30, I got there.
You found yourself there.
I found myself there.
And I think that's the conviction. Once there's a conviction in your spirit, you are the one that would make that
decision,
move. And it was at uni that you actually met someone, isn't it? Yes. And how did you meet, as we begin to round up?
So we met at a church event. So he went to my church, but was on a different campus. And so we would travel into London from my university to, go to service. And I saw him, he was in the choir, and I was like, okay. And I just, it was nothing at first. And then the more you start to speak to someone, you realize, well, actually, he's a nice guy. I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, let's be friends. And that's how it started.
And you started that picture perfect relationship, right? And that picture perfect relationship eventually evolved to
us getting engaged.
Right.
Having a traditional wedding. And then eventually the wedding got called off.
Your relationship went on for how long?
6 years.
6 years. What was the 6 years like?
A roller coaster.
Okay.
Okay, so it had its highs, it had its lows, had its scary moments, it had its fun moments.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened in terms, I know you mentioned during the relationship, there was some things that happened that made you really question that, are you supposed to be together?
Yeah.
What were those things, and, how did you deal with them, basically?
I think, so there were, like all relationships, it started off really well.
Okay.
Really, really well. And he was actually an international student. So he actually moved here to study.
Right. Okay.
And so when there was a period of time when he had to travel back, and we, were in a long distance relationship.
Okay. How was that in terms of long distance? Yeah.
It was very hard.
Okay.
And I think...
How long had you been together before it went?
The first time, only a few months.
Okay. Oh.
The second time, a few years. So it was hard because the relationship was still very new.
Okay.
And because it was new, you don't necessarily understand each other.
Yes.
I think it's really important for people to know things like their personality type, their love language.
Very important.
But at the time I was like 19, so you're telling me to check what my love language is. I'm like, it's not just one language, it's love,
It's true.
But my love language is quality time. And that's really, really important to me. So being in a long distance relationship where you can't spend that quality time was challenging.
Okay. And
during that time as well, there was a lot of issues of communication. I learned that, he isn't the best communicator.
Right.
So in my reasoning, if you are in a relationship with someone and you're in a different country, you make a bigger effort to call, but that's just not the way.
But isn't that normal with most men? They don't necessarily know how to communicate.
It may be. It may be. It just... It was a shock for me.
But I guess I see what you're saying, because when you're friends, isn't it? Even if they don't, if even when it's someone that doesn't talk a lot, you kind of like look for a way to communicate.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I think if you are building something together, and I like to say Christian relationship for a reason, because from the beginning, it wasn't like the relationships with some of my friends. We had a number of discussions about intention.
Right.
Like, okay, what are we going to do in this relationship? Yes. Could it be towards marriage? Yeah. We were young, but those were the conversations that we were having.
Which is really good and deep, for that age.
So if you're having intentional conversations, then you also have to be intentional about building that relationship.
Yes. All right. Okay. Yeah. So what then happened? How did you find yourself? So you've gone to Nigeria, done traditional wedding.
Yeah. So that was fast forward the second time. So the first time we broke up, got back together, we moved back, we were together, it was great. And then not too long after he proposed, he moved back to work. Okay. He got a job opportunity out there. And so he moved back. That was never really in the cards.
Right.
And I think that's where it kind of shook me a bit. And we were engaged, and it was like, I almost felt stuck. I was happy. Yes. I was really, really happy because this was the person that I loved. Yeah. But I felt stuck because I said yes. Whereas when I found out he was moving, which was only a month before proposal, and it's all in my book, but a month before proposal, we said, let's see how that goes before we continue this marriage talk. So I felt like I was almost backed in a corner where, well, either way, we're going to get married. So it has to work whether we like it or not. So during that year of him being back in Nigeria, it was really, really challenging. But we still decided to do the traditional anyway. Okay. So we had the challenges before the traditional. So we did the traditional. It was huge, I was the first of my parents' kids to get married. Even though I'm the youngest, I was the first to get married. Yeah. So everybody came. There was buses from Erimol. There was buses from Elisha. We did it in Nigeria. So there was buses from everywhere. Wow. And I remember walking in thinking, how many people are in this hall?
And really, for Nigerians, the traditional is
the wedding.
It's the wedding, exactly. Really. All the
exactly. Others, and it was such a. I'm not going to lie now because it's over there. It was beautiful. Such a beautiful day. And so that was a big step. But I remember on the day of the traditional, we weren't even talking.
Really?
No, we weren't talking. And so.
And you went ahead, isn't it?
And we went ahead. I remember messaging him in the morning. You know, as women, we can send in the pistols of messages. One long message, and he just responded, "Okay, love you." I said,
"Wow."
So this is the life I've chosen. Yeah. So we had the traditional, and after that we made up. It was okay. We made up, and we made a decision to try. And we said we'll go to relationship counselling, all of that stuff, because the white wedding was on the corner.
So this is relationship counselling. You haven't even started the actual marriage together. You haven't started, and you're having to, Yeah. So maybe those are some of the things maybe would have helped initially. If
it would have definitely helped initially. And even with that, you know, when the talk of relationship counselling came, it was like, oh, can we do it separately before we do it together? Because there were things that he couldn't say to me in person. And that's always going to be a red flag.
Yes.
And I'm not saying this in any way to say that he is a bad person, but if you are about to marry somebody and you don't feel like you can be honest with that person, that's a problem.
I also remember you were saying that there were some things that you were feeling that God was saying to you about, you know, characters, personalities,
definitely.
You know, about yourself, about him, that you needed to work on, that you were sort of like ignoring because
I was ignoring it.
Wanted it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we although we had similarities in terms of church and family values and so on and so forth, in terms of like our personalities, we were different. And for what I knew God was calling me to do, God told me quite early on that these certain traits that he had is not compatible with what he's called me to do, and vice versa. So some of the things he wanted to do, certain traits that I had, was not compatible with that, with him. But because I was so wrapped in my head, I was thinking, at this point, it was about 5 years in. I said, God, so I'm going to throw this 5 years in the bin.
Away,
No, we can make it work.
And that's why what I opened the show with, in terms of that's, you know, listen,
I was trying to negotiate with God. That was
so what then happened in terms of where did you then find yourself?
Yeah, so we did the counselling separately. It was very strange. And the week of the wedding, the white wedding, on the Monday, so it was supposed to be on a Saturday, he was supposed to fly in beforehand, but there was all these issues at hand. I don't know, issues with passports and visas and families and stuff. And I received a message, not even a call, a message to say that unfortunately Saturday can't go ahead, that the wedding's going to be postponed. So the first announcement was postponed.
So this message was from your fiancé?
No, from his mum.
Oh, okay. So not from him. Okay, all right, How did you feel about it? I can't begin to.
I felt broken, actually. I'm a very no-nonsense person, but in that moment, I feel like even if you throw a brick at me, I'd have just stood still. It was painful. It was really, really hard. I felt like I'd been betrayed because of who the message came from.
Yes.
And it was like, at that point, my family members were flying in from across the country. You know, some of his family had flown from across the country, from the world, sorry. And it was like, what do you say now?
What do you say?
You know, where do you go from here, basically?
And then what happened after that? So eventually the wedding didn't go through.
Yeah, so...
And then what did you do in terms of...
Yeah, so before all of that happened, before he finally broke off the relationship, about 3 weeks after, that week, the day before the wedding was supposed to be, my friends had booked a hotel to stay near the location of the wedding.
So just to reiterate, so everything had been planned, everything.
Everything had been paid for.
This was obviously a few days before the actual wedding.
Yeah.
Everything had been sorted and everything. So you went they booked an hotel for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they booked a hotel and they said, you know, just to clear your head, because at that point in the Yoruba culture, when something like that happens, family, everyone rallies around each other, you know. So they booked a hotel. I stayed there. And when I got into that hotel room, I literally just broke down. I broke down and I was crying and crying and crying. And then I couldn't pray. I felt so disappointed. But I felt the urge to write. So I began to write. And I didn't know at the time that what I was writing then will become my book, behind the scenes.
Yes. And I remember you saying that it's behind the scenes of that picture perfect relationship that we always kind of like want.
Yeah. And so I just wrote, you know, just listened to God. And so when he eventually did call off the relationship, even though I was praying against that, God, you must mend this relationship. I was doing dry fast. I was doing everything, you know. Even though I was praying towards that, when he did break up with me, I remember being broken, but I felt as if God had already given me everything that I needed to go through that season. So it was painful. But I felt strengthened. I felt like he'd equipped me for this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you then went and you had an encounter with God, and then your healing
my healing process
just kind of like began.
It began, yeah.
Yes. And what was that journey for you in terms of your healing process, and how have you be able to reach other people?
Yeah.
In terms of what you've been able, what you've been through.
Yeah. One of the words that God said to me, the Holy Spirit said to me, is that, there will be glory from this.
Right.
That, it won't all be in vain.
Right.
And I had to hold on to that even when I felt as if the only thing that was coming from this was shame. Right. So the first thing God did was lift up shame from me, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And so then I felt empowered to be able to be honest and just say, it didn't work out, but I'm not dead. There's still more to life.
Yes.
And because of that confidence, it confused a lot of people. It confused people because they expected me to be broken. And even though I didn't look like I was. And so people started to invite me to speak at, different events.
Because you hadn't seen anyone that had been through that before, isn't it? So there wasn't anyone you could go to for help and support in that.
No one to go to. And that was one of the reasons why, even when I was so afraid to release the book, I said, what did I need at that time? I needed someone who'd been through it. Someone who can say to me that, there'll be ugly days, but there will be better days ahead, So I wrote the book with that in mind, and also because I knew it was another avenue to show people that you are more than the relationship that you're in. Your relationship can be beautiful. I believe marriage is beautiful. But the truth of the matter is, if it fails, that's okay. It's about what you do after that. What lessons are you learning,
You've had to, Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story. And I know you go about helping people. I know you public speaking, and I've asked you that, what have been people's experiences, reaction to you. Yeah. What are some of the reactions you've gotten as we just round up on the show?
Yeah, gosh, a lot of, oh my gosh, you went through that. Yeah. And some, unfortunately, have been through it. Or are going through it. And that's hard because you want to be able to support people in the best way you can, with being honest with them that you don't know all the answers.
Right.
But in all things, it's being able to share that message of hope.
Yes.
That has been...
And that's the important thing, isn't it? Well, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you that, you've taken that on and you're supporting other people through, what you've been through. God bless you for doing that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.